Hello everyone, welcome back to Black Moon Coven. So today I thought we would talk about foraging since foraging season is upon us, and I thought I would talk about how I personally like to forage and my little guidelines for that. Now before we get into the video, I would like to state that these are just my ways of doing it, my ways of practicing my own path. Please don't take this as a rule book or any type of suggested order of events that you have to do in order to forage. You can forage however you like. I like to talk about some safety precautions when it comes to foraging and some other things spiritually related when it comes to foraging. So the reason why I love to forage is because it helps me connect with the land where I live. You would be surprised at how many different plants and species grows within your little community, your little area. Furthermore, I'm a big animist, and I believe that everything has a soul, especially plants. So for me, during the springtime to the fall time, even in the winter time, I like to connect with the plants and with the world around me by foraging and by using those plants in my practice. Foraging can be very therapeutic, it can be very relaxing, and also very exciting because you never know what you're going to be finding on your specific forage. But it has to be done safely. There is a number of safety concerns when you are going out and foraging. Something as so simple as picking flowers you have to be extremely safe with. Foraging may seem very simple and very easy. You're just going to go pick some flowers and pick some minerals from the earth. However, there are some dangers lying just beneath, and you have to learn about those dangers in order to forage. Now, foraging is something that I wouldn't recommend even for a beginner witch, just because that there are certain dangers that go along with it. However, if you are careful and you know what you're doing, foraging can be an excellent way to connect with the land around you and to connect with the spirits of the different plants and to use those plants in your magic. Plus, you can use locally, so that's really, really great. So the very first tip that I would like to give you is always be prepared. Now that goes with anything, but for foraging more than other things, just because you never know what you're going to be finding out there or what you can stumble upon. There's plenty of times that I would leave the house without a bag, without gloves or anything, and find a skull or some bones that I really want to pick up, but I can't because I don't have anything to pick it up with. So always be prepared. Even now, I keep a shopping bag inside my work bag because you never know. And especially when I go to specific places to forage, I have a list of ingredients that I like to take with me just so that I am prepared. So the first thing is a foraging bag or basket. So sometimes I like to bring my basket just because it feels more natural. You're picking some herbs and your flowers and you're gonna bring it in your basket. I bought this beautiful basket for $2 at Goodwill. So, you know, when things kind of go back to normal from now, you can go out to Goodwill and buy yourself a really nice big foraging basket. I also have a foraging bag that I made, and I will link the video down below in the description, but basically the bag is a regular t-shirt type of bag. It's a regular type of saddle type of bag, but on the inside there is a shopping bag, so the bag can be washed out and it doesn't get dirty, just because if you are picking plants and herbs and flowers and things like that, and even rocks, it's gonna get dirty because of dirt and different things. Also, I like reusing old tea boxes because they are really lightweight and it allows for the herbs to be separated. So if you find some berries or some herbs that are really small and you want to separate them from the much bigger pile of herbs, put them in a little tea box and put them on top of the other herbs. Now, I love using tea boxes because they're both lightweight, really compact, and I drink a lot of tea, so I have plenty of these lying around and I just use them for a variety of different things. Especially bones too. If you want to separate your bones from the rest of the herbs, you can use a nice little tea box. So always bring gloves with you and extra shopping bags, just because you never know. Some plants you cannot pick up, some things you cannot pick up, like bones and other poisonous plants. Make sure that you have gloves with you. Also, make sure that you have a little foraging knife. Now, a lot of the times they call it a bowline. I just call it a little knife. I bought this little knife off of Wish couple months ago. It was really cheap, about like $2. Yes, it does take a long time to come in. However, order it in the wintertime and it'll be here by the spring. But bring a little switchblade knife with you just in case. I usually don't like to cut my herbs unless I have to, unless it's a really thorny branch or it's poisonous and I cannot touch it, or some of the things along those lines. So a little foraging knife is always nice to have, and I just like to clip it on my basket or on my bag and it's there. So it's really nice to have a little knife with you. Also, something that's really important to keep around is an herbal identifying book or an app. Now, I use an app alongside with books too. I shouldn't say I only use an app, because I like to cross-reference, because sometimes even the app will pick up on certain plants that are around the plant that I'm trying to identify, all these different things. But I use Picture This, and it's a great herbal identification app. I think it's like $12 like for a year. So, you know, and there's a free trial as well, but I think for a whole year, I definitely use the app every time I'm walking around. So I think that's a really fair price. Anyways, always a great little thing to have is an herbal identification booklet or an app, just something so you can identify the herbs when you are walking along. Now, if you don't know any type of herbs that you are picking, that is really dangerous. We're going to get into that later. However, also your phones definitely come with a camera, so make sure that you take a picture of each herb that you pick for identification purposes and all that. So make sure you have your phone with you, your gloves, extra bags, a foraging knife, some tea boxes, some different little things, maybe a little blanket to cover the herbs and all that stuff. So being prepared is definitely a key to foraging. When you go out and you go set to forage, make sure that you are very prepared, because you never know what you are going to find. Even if you live in the really big city or in the countryside of the world, there are plenty of places to forage. Now, however, there are certain specific areas where foraging is illegal, so make sure that you check with the different area that you live in and the different parks and different things like that. I'm in a more urban type of landscape. I do have a lot of foresty areas nearby that I'm allowed to forage. However, I have to be really responsible when I forage. There are different parks that I like to forage at where basically it just grows rampant, and I could forage whatever I need. I do like to do a bit of city foraging as well. You'd be surprised at the different herbs that grow between the little cracks of the city. So it doesn't matter if you live out in the city or out in the country, you know, there are foraging places everywhere. You just have to be careful about foraging in certain parks and certain things, because sometimes the plants are planted there for a reason, so you don't want to offset any regions, you know, with biology and things like that. So definitely check with different parks and different woodsy areas where you can forage, where it's illegal to forage, and different things like that. Also, please do not go on other people's property to forage. I know how tempting it is. You know, if we see a pretty flower, or if we see an herb that we're like, oh my God, this is vervain, it's growing right in your yard and you don't know it. But please do not go on other people's property. Don't get yourself into trouble just because you want to pick someone's flowers. You can ask, you can ring the doorbell and ask if, you know, if you really need it. You can ask if you could have some of their flowers or some of their herbs or whatever the case may be. They might not even know what the plant is, and they might let you have it. So it just really depends. Also, please be careful by train tracks, because a lot of the chemicals are released from the rust in the trains and things like that. Be very careful foraging there. Basically, urban foraging is almost like you cannot use it for edible purposes. So no teas, no edible medicinal things, stuff like that. I usually use my herbs for oils and spell making, because knowing that a lot of people spray pesticides around here, especially in a more urban landscape. A lot of people, unfortunately, urinate outside, so you will, by chance, don't want to eat or ingest any of the herbs that you forage out in a more urban landscape. If you live out in the country, that is awesome. You have a more vast variety of herbs and a more ways you could use it for. So if you live out in the country and you for sure know that people don't use pesticides, People don't do the things that they do outside, out in your backyard. That's perfect, and you could use it for a bunch of different things. So again, just check where you can forage and just be safe when you're foraging. If you know that it's a more urban landscape, there's a lot of foot traffic nearby, things of this nature, it might not be as safe to use the herbs medicinally, orally, etc. So just be safe, be prepared, check local guidelines, things like that. When I go out to forage for different plants and minerals and rocks and different things, I like to bring an offering, just because I'm a strong believer in animism, and I believe that every plant and every forest is guarded by a spirit, has a soul, etc. So when I go into the forest to forage, or any park or any type of natural landscape, I believe that there is a spirit guarding that place. So I like to appease those spirits by giving them offerings. Also, it's kind of like a give and take type of thing. You are going into that environmental area and you're causing a ripple by picking some of the plants and some of the resources there. So you want to replace something that you have taken. So I like to think of offerings as kind of me replacing the things that I'm going to be taking for my own practice. Now, obviously you can't go and start planting things in different areas, but what I like to do is bring either apples, seeds, nuts, bread, anything that will feed the wildlife there, because to me that is giving back to the nature of the area, because you are taking some of their food sources away. So by replenishing that food source, it's kind of like a give and take kind of evenness that goes along there. Now, asking permission. A lot of people feel the need to ask for permission. That is my way of asking for permission. That is my way of saying, yes, I'm here to take some of the stuff here, but I am going to be leaving some things, so it's kind of an even trade-off. It's not like I'm asking for permission, it's more like I am buying my way in, so to speak. I want to talk about want versus need for a second. When we go out foraging and we see a little patch of, say, Dutch clovers or a little patch of lavender, and there's only a small little patch. Now, what are you going to do? A lot of the times, people will just rip the whole patch off. But because you're doing that, it causes a ripple and it causes a bioenvironmental hazard. So you don't want to offset any type of plant life or animal life in the area. If there's a little tiny patch of lavender, wait for next season. I know, as sad as it is, you can get lavender at the store. Wait for next season, and then the amount of lavender there in that area will double because it'll spread its seeds. However, if you really, truly, truly need the lavender, the little small patch, pick a couple sprigs. Make sure that you are not picking the whole lot. Never pick the whole lot. Always pick a couple, 1/4, maybe even 1/8 of what's there. I never like to pick more than what I need, because in reality, are you going to use that whole jar of lavender or that whole jar of purple nettles, And now, especially in a time where we can get a lot of this stuff at the store, we technically don't need to go out foraging. It's something more of a practice. It's something more to connect with the nature around you. And to connect with that nature, you have to understand the balance of nature. By taking, you are causing a hole, you're causing a ripple in that environment. And, that plant is growing there for a reason. I always love to say that, because it is. It didn't just happen to come there. It's growing there for a reason. It's serving a purpose in the nature of things. So you always want to make sure to be very careful when you are picking and foraging, not to offset the plant and animal life in the specific area. If there are really young plants, like for example, a couple days ago I was walking by and I saw goldenrod, and I don't have that plant yet, so I need to get some, and I know where it's growing in abundance. However, the plant is still very young. So I have to patiently wait till about midsummer, and then it will flourish and it'll bloom. It'll be very nice. So always give the plants a chance to grow. That's kind of why I don't start my foraging till about middle of the springtime, because I want to make sure that I'm giving the plants an opportunity to grow and to blossom and to reach their full potential before I pick them and I use in my magical practice. Now, Sometimes you have to pick certain plants on certain moons and certain things. People like to do that. That's very great. If there are really young plants, I encourage you to find a more mature plant. Maybe you have to put that spell off for a while, or just get it at the store. There are certain complications when you are foraging and you are a big, earth lover and activist and things like that. So it kind of coincides together, but I try to do it as ethically as possible. So just try not to offset any type of region by picking too much of one thing and leaving that void there. You could also take it a step further, and when you get home with the plant, you collect the seeds of that specific plant and then come back and spread them around for the plant, so then you can replace that ripple that you have caused by picking that specific plant. Now, I want to talk about never picking unknowns. That is a really big safety precaution. Never pick a plant that you have no idea what it is. Okay, things like dandelions, lavender, daisies, I think a lot of people can identify pretty easily, and you can totally pick those. However, a little personal story. A couple of days ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, who knows, I was in the woods and I found these little tiny waxy leaf type of plants growing really low to the ground. I really wanted to pick some, but I didn't bring anything with me. I was just gonna go for a little hike. Coming back home, I took a picture of the plant because that's what I always do. I take a picture of the plant and I go and I research. Coming back home, I found out that it was American mandrake. It was mayapple. Very, very poisonous. So that just goes to show you that even if you live in an urban landscape or in the countryside, there are dangerous, poisonous plants out there. You want to be very careful. A couple days ago in the park, I found some pokeweed growing just right alongside the train tracks, right alongside the fence, just growing in abundance. Pokeweed is also very poisonous. It's very dangerous to touch also, so I was kind of quite surprised that it would grow there. But never assume that a plant is not dangerous because it comes from the earth, or because it doesn't look dangerous, because it doesn't have little spikes on it or little thorns or anything like that. Plants and herbalism is a dangerous practice. Don't let anyone fool you. Plants are very dangerous, okay? Especially the wrong type of plants in a very uneducated type of environment. They kind of coincide, and sometimes there are extreme accidents. So there are dangerous and poisonous plants in your area. Make sure that you never pick a plant that you don't know. Even if it's not poisonous, even if you 100% sure know that the plant is not poisonous, you just don't know the plant, I would still take a picture of it, come back home, research it, and then figure out, do I really need this plant or do I just want to pick it? Because that is a big difference between want and need. So, always great to have an herbal book near you, or the plant identifier app, just because then you can do it on the spot. You can be like, okay, this is mandrake, or this is chickweed, and I actually need some of these properties, so I'm going to pick a couple, and there you go. So never pick plants that you don't know, because that could be extremely, extremely dangerous. Herbalism is a passion of mine. It really is. I love botany and everything to do with herbs and medicinal things. However, it can be very dangerous if you are not careful. So just make sure that you learn everything there is to know about specific herbs before you go out and forage. Now, when you go out and forage, there is a guarantee you will find herbs and plants that you don't know. So just be very careful with not picking those and coming back to them. And if you really need them, you can learn about them and then pick them later. So we are going to be kind of displaying a little foraging charm that I like to do before I go out, and it's something that kind of gives me a little luck, gives me a little boost when I go out and forage, because to me foraging is such a great spiritual practice. So I will display that now. For this very simple good luck foraging charm, what you are going to need is a tea light, a candle, a lighter, any type of source of light. You're going to need a bay leaf or parchment paper. I like using bay leaf because it's an herb, and that's kind of the focus here, and a non-toxic marker. You don't want to use Sharpie when you are doing this, because we're going to be burning it and applying it to the skin, so make sure that you are using something non-toxic, maybe your own ink or your own things like that. And you're going to need a cauldron. So essentially this is a wish spell. It's a spell to give you that good luck while foraging, to kind of help your hands be guided while you are foraging and help your eyes be more alert, and to give you that good luck when you are, out there and foraging. So I'm going to draw my sigil upon here. Now, you can definitely design your own, because as you know, sigils, the magic of sigils comes from creation. So you definitely want to design your own. However, this is my sigil right here, just for the good luck foraging. You're not going to see it on the bay leaf so much because using non-toxic markers, they don't leave such a great mark. But the magic is there, and that's all that counts. So you want to make a sigil for good luck during foraging. And I think I wrote, I am lucky in my forage, or my forage was plentiful. Something along those lines to give you that great foraging power. So you grab your cauldron, you light your bay leaf. And this might take a couple times, bay leaves. Be very careful doing this. So we're going to let that burn in the cauldron. We're going to let that burn off, and you're going to collect the ashes from the bay leaf, and you're going to be rubbing it on your hands. So it doesn't matter if it didn't burn all the way, you're going to be using the bay leaf. So we're going to burn it a little bit more to get more of the ashes in. And just really think about your foraging and good luck and things like that. So once we have enough ash, or you have burned your leaf all the way down, you're going to take some of that bay leaf ash and you're going to rub it on your hands. Okay, so you're going to rub some ash on your hands. You can do it on your face if you want to. However, please don't do it by your eyes or on top of your eyes or anything like that. You want to kind of have it on your hands. Now your hands will be guided to go out and forage. Hopefully everyone enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for part 2, where I will be showing you how to dry, store, and keep your herbs. We will be filming in my apothecary, so that should be a lot of fun. Join me on all of my social media down below. Join some awesome aminos that I am a part of. And if you are new to the coven, join and subscribe. We have more witchy uploads to come. So until next time, have a lovely, beautiful, magical day.